Hi, I'm Karen Kauffman, and I'm pleased to be showing some of my artwork at the Progress Gallery. So thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully some of you will be able to see it in person. I'm going to talk a little bit about my influences and how I come to make some of the paintings that I make. I have pretty much two distinct ways of approaching my paintings that are pretty large. I paint on wood panels and acrylics. I use a lot of acrylic medium to add some dimension and some texture, and I have one set that is very much meditative and more monochromatic blacks and whites, and that stemmed from a just life experience of losing someone close to me, and that spurred on a lot of philosophical questions, and that was translated into my work. I also have more of a joyous side of me, which is also integral to who I am, and that is usually vibrant and energetic, and I think it's lyrical, playful, organic, all of the things that are that bring me joy and I think are beautiful. I'm very much inspired by nature. I would say I've always been kind of an outdoor person. We were hikers in the Sierras. I've lived in Southern California since I was 10 years old. Before that, we lived in Minnesota, Illinois, and Canada, and for a short time, so very cold, generally cold, versus when we moved to Southern California at age 10, it was completely a culture shock. And since I spend so much time outdoors, it was picking up shells on the beach and seeing the ocean, waves, and those things still influence me today. Also, before that, though, the time in Canada, my dad became a bush pilot, and so he took our family. We lived in a remote village called Moosonee, and that was an amazing time of seeing the aurora borealis and the beautiful colors and the swirling patterns and all of those effects. And I watched Cree Indian women using making beadwork, really intricate beadwork on moccasins and gloves made out of moose hide, and plucking geese and the beautiful patterns in the geese feathers, and all of these really incredible things in nature were incorporated into their ways of living that had been taking place over time. I was very much interested in the ritual of all of that, and making things and incorporating the beauty of nature into what you were making. And so a lot of those influences you can still see in my work. When I'm walking on the beach, it feels like the foam that sort of travels across the sand and becomes this lacy pattern, this delicate pattern that just sort of dissipates and then makes these beautiful patterns in the sand of darks and lights and all these neutrals, but there's so much richness and range of color that I'm continually awed by nature and what its beauty is. I would say that when I was younger, my mom was a great influence for me that way. She would marvel at, a snowflake would land in her hand, and she would show us and say, look at this incredible thing that happens, and oh, look at the bird's feathers, isn't that incredible, and look at the sky and the beauty of sunsets, and and butterflies' wings, and all of the things that they're passing, and we don't really take the time to really notice. Sometimes there's just beauty around us continually, and so I think she gave me particularly the idea that you can extract all of this, and really, if you notice and you watch and you pay attention closely to things that are right there in front of us, there's all these beautiful gifts that nature gives us every time we turn around. So it taught me to really pay close attention to this incredible design that's happening around us, and it just goes from the small, microcosms to, the cosmos and all of that. And the stars were another thing. She says, look at infinity. And it really opened me to a lot of ways of thinking that were not just I want to make a pretty thing, but some things that really were, meaningful and full of depth, and questions that we all have about life and what happens in life. And, we label things good or bad, and everything is split into, one category or the opposite category, and that idea of duality. And it made me think about that. A lot of times when I'm painting, I'm thinking a lot of deep thoughts, and I think that it's really, really interesting that they get embedded into the work somehow. It's subconscious. I'm not meaning to do that. When I'm painting, I start out with no preconceived idea of what I'm going to be doing, but I make a mark, and then it's a simple act of staying in the moment and following that process. I make another mark, and each mark I make, I want it to be beautiful in some way, or elegant, or like a dance where I'm composing something one step after another, and I'm constantly turning the painting north, south, east, and west, so that everything can be woven together in sort of this orchestra where it's one mark, one note. There's a lot of metaphors to compare it to, but all of these individual parts that make up this whatever it's going to be. And some of the most incredible paintings that I never would have expected, I feel like I can't even take a lot of credit for, because they pretty much make themselves in a way. It's amazing how, if you get out of your own way, things can unfold in ways beyond your thinking mind, that the subconscious can just flow and unfold, and it has an intelligence that is far beyond its creativity, and it's what we can, it's our wildest dreams basically imagined, and we can just watch it happen, and it's a lot of times effortless. You can always tell the paintings that feel forced, because when I want to make a good painting, I'm going to make a good painting, and it's very laughable because it doesn't seem to work that way for me. The ones that just, okay, I feel centered, I'm in the moment, it's sort of a meditative process, and then I just commit and make a mark, and that mark sets it in motion, and then it starts one mark after another until I get to a point where it feels balanced or finished in a way. I had an artist friend who told me, I said, I don't really, I struggle with, some people say, oh, you're finished way before you know it, because I keep wanting to push it further and further and go down that road. It's like a journey. I see a detour, I think, oh, if I layer this, then maybe I can carve away on that. And I've been doing a lot of layering, and then and then all of a sudden it seems to be right to just take some of that away and minimalize. And then I discover all kinds of effects that I would have never been able to think of, oh, if I do this, then I would be able to come up with this effect. So I discover things along the way, and I think that's very similar to the way I approach life in general, is kind of like we're all on this journey together. We're just doing the best we can, and maybe we can discover something. Maybe we can learn about ourselves. Maybe we can learn about how we are, you know, connected to each other. Maybe we can be more compassionate towards each other. Maybe we can, you know, kind of bring something to the world that someone else, you know, no one else could bring, because we are who we are. So, you know, not to be too hard on ourselves, but be able to just go with that flow and kind of a stream of consciousness sort of approach to painting and kind of to life. So I was wanting to give you a little bit of my background too. I was always the class artist from the time as long as I can remember. I know I had mentioned my mom, she had an appreciation for nature and translated that to me, but also she could draw really well, and I admired that about her. She said, oh no, I'm not an artist, but I said, oh well. Looking back, I thought, yes, she was. She just didn't, you know, take that and call herself an artist, but she would entertain us. I had three sisters, and so she would entertain us. Like when we were in Canada, we had no television, we had no electricity at that point. We were living very, you know, back to nature kind of existence. She would draw for us and taught me to draw. At that time, I was about 8 years old, and I learned her way of seeing, and I really give her full credit for being able to teach me not just the technical skills, but the idea of when you are looking closely, you're curious, you're wondering about things, that curious mind and kind of an open mind about things, and all of that also translates to being an artist. And so anyway, when we came back to the United States and then moved to Southern California, I was 10. I had a teacher who was describing different things, jobs that you could do when you grew up, and I remember thinking, well, I'm already an artist, so what she's describing, one of the jobs she described was called interior decorating back then, and I thought, oh, that's completely something I would love to do. So I continued on that, and so at that age I decided I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to be an interior designer, and then I continued with my schooling. We lived in Orange County in Fullerton, California, and I grew up most of my life there, and went to Cal State Fullerton. While I was in high school, I took a lot of art classes, and my art teacher there was very, very encouraging, and she let me apply for a scholarship to Art Center College of Design. And at the time, and I got to go there on Saturdays, and they provided that time frame when I was a senior. So I really enjoyed that. It made a big impact on me. But then I decided, well, I'm going to go to Cal State Fullerton. They had a major in environmental design, which really was right up my alley. I thought, okay, I can have a double major. I'll be a fine artist major, and I'll be an environmental design major. So that's what I did. Environmental design consisted of architectural design, of interior design, and of landscape design. So all of those things I got a wide range of information, and then when I graduated, I tested and became an American Society of Interior Designer, and then I just kept painting. And so I had two things that I had going at the same time, but one sort of worked for the other. The way I saw interior design influenced my painting, and the way I painted influenced my interior design. So it was kind of an interesting collaboration within myself to see how some of that you could do what you wanted to do, and it could work in ways that you may not have expected, but it was great for me. In Temecula, they had a sister city program. In Temecula, California, they had a sister city program where they would pick artists, and so to travel and go to the Czech Republic, to Netherlands, and to Poland for a year. And so some of my pieces, an artist from the Netherlands came over, Frans Kuchschorn, who did some work for Temecula, came to my studio, picked some work, and I got to be in that group show, and that was a really cool opportunity to be able to have a wider audience for my work. Another opportunity I was able to have was in Idlewild, California, was artist residency program called Painting's Edge, and that was one Roland Rees, who's a Los Angeles artist who passed recently, but he was head of that and got together a group of artists from all over the United States, some from Canada, but many wide ranges of backgrounds and abilities and different styles of paintings, and painting and sculpture and all kinds of different things like that. And it was a huge influence for me because I got to see a diverse range of what people were doing from all over the country, and then they brought in with the program other artists who were showing in museums all over, and there were critics, from LA, and just all kinds of people to be able to get feedback on your work. So that was a whole nother experience that I had not even, it was unfathomable to me that was available. So each time you just keep seeing things unfold, and the opportunities present themselves in ways that you couldn't ever pursue. They just come to you, and I am always amazed at how that works. There are so many people and places and events that have influenced me. For years, Riverside Art Museum was a huge part of my connection with other artists, and the people that I met there were amazing. I learned so much just by going to artist meetings and showing your work and getting feedback from other artists. Everything is just kind of like laying upon a foundation, and again, I see such a parallel, metaphor for life, and how all the experiences of painting and what you're actually doing is like life itself, and everything seems to come together in ways that are, you sit back and think, this is amazing. This is an amazing life. This is amazing that I get to do what I love and paint and really spread what I feel. If I can bring some joy to someone, or if I can at least, not even that everything has to be happy and joyful, that there's that other side of the coin, that is, there is the joyful side, the beautiful side, the wonderful side, and then you have the poignant side, and things don't always work out the way you hoped, but yet there's meaning in that, and somehow they weave themselves together. And so I really appreciate that wide range of learning about life, learning about myself, through my painting, through other artists. Just all of those things are, to me, what makes life amazing. And however people use their creativity, it's not just visual art. It's you know, I see creative problem solving. I've always seen art as sort of a mathematical puzzle, visual puzzle somehow. And when I'm working, I'm trying to figure out, how can I make this work visually? How can I make this work? So people that are using, you know, numbers to creative problem solve, I think the creative process itself is amazing, and it's exciting for me to see other people, oh no, I'm not an artist or whatever. Really, everybody has that creativity, and if we can go back to where we're not judging everything we do. I mean, I'm talking to myself in particular because I took some of my I painted in watercolor for 10 years before I changed to acrylic, and now I'm also doing printmaking and I'm wanting to get into encaustic and maybe incorporate oils. So I want to focus on something for a long time, and so I've spent 10 years in watercolor. I've spent over 10 years in working with acrylics, and now I'm adding, you know, more things to what I'm wanting to try and just expand. But my early paintings, I was thinking, oh, I want these to be perfect. And so I ripped them up, and I thought, why would I do that? Because it's kind of a measuring stick. And so now I am trying to be more patient with myself as I am learning and continuing to learn, no matter what you know, part of life I'm at. It's a whole nother experience. And maybe I want to talk about the circle. Using the circle is another thing that I also feel very connected to. I've been incorporating a lot of circles and ovals in my work, and that idea of using the circle, it's this idea of unity, this idea of sort of connection to the infinite. This, I mean, it has ancient symbolism, and so there is something about the circle that makes the paintings feel whole to me. When I add a circle, there's something about that. And so when it calls for that, when I feel the insistence, this sort of inner urging to put a circle in, that's when I add it. And that seems to be the missing piece in a lot of the ones that I'm working on lately. So I wanted to talk about a particular piece that I've been working on a long time. It's based on circular. Everything seems to be radiating from the center, and I think that that's how the universe works. It's, you know, going back to this source, and everything's expanded from that to our center, our core, where you have this quiet center, and with all the chaos going on outside ourselves, you always can go back to this quiet center. And so I think this one particular piece that I'm working on, it's a 5x5 acrylic on panel, wood panel, and I started I was going to make it was going to be black and white. And as I kept working on it, I kept building layer upon layer. I was using acrylic gel medium, and then it had a texture, but everything was radiating from the center. And it was in concentric circles, but building up in ways that I thought, this is really interesting. It kind of reminded me of my husband and my 3 sons. They all surf. So when they would put wax on their surfboards, they would build up the wax, and it would build up a surface to a really bumpy texture. And that's what was happening with this buildup on my painting. And so then as the circular concentric circles kept forming, then there was a time where I felt like it needed to be carved on. So it was able to, I took a chisel and some of my wood carving chisels, because I used to do some wood carving years ago. Then I thought, oh, maybe this can work also on acrylic. So I was carving and it would expose some beautiful textures, and I felt like I was in an archaeological dig or something where you're exploring and you're finding things that you had no idea were there. And this process was interesting because then I would carve out chips all radiating of the sometimes they would go down into the wood panel and they would make these oval chips, and they look like shells, like the shells I used to collect on the beach when we first came to Southern California, and or just beautiful rocks. I always have been attracted to rocks and the texture of rocks. So all of these things seem to come full circle. Whatever I do, it has some it relates to something else that either I have an interest in, or a memory that I had, or a belief system, or something like that. And when I stand back and reflect, it makes sense looking back, but when I'm immersed in the moment, I am fully in that moment when I'm painting, and I just listen to the inner promptings. And sometimes I feel like I am grateful for that guidance even, and I'm not really I don't even know where I'm focusing that gratefulness towards, except that whatever that inner guidance is, I appreciate it, because I feel like I'm led in ways that I would never try on, that I would never know to keep going, both in life and in my painting. So I think that is probably a great way to summarize the way I approach things, is just that being in the moment and experiencing that sort of stream of consciousness flow, and just being connected to every event, every thing in nature, to people, to whatever that unseen thread is amongst all of us. I think that's something that really shines through, and I think it is embedded in the work somehow. I think that's a really interesting thing that happens. I'd like to thank you all for watching, and hopefully you'll be able to come and see the show at the Progress Gallery. I appreciate them being able to show my work this May 2022. So thank you so much, and really appreciate you watching.